Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got one of my favorite videos to film every year, and that is my favorite books of 2023. This is going to be my top 10 plus an 11th tacked on to the end, because what I've tried to do is for the top 10 just have them be books that came out in 2023, but then I had to include another one because it was a big hit for me this year, but it came out a few years ago. So we're just going to get on into it. The first book I have to mention, and I should say these aren't in any particular order. I loved them all for different reasons. Some got me harder than others, but I had a great time with all of them. So I'm kind of keeping the most emotionally abusive ones to the beginning because they were so good, but I love them all. So yes, number one, I haven't done a book talk on this one yet on my channel, but it's coming soon. It'll probably be the first video that goes up after Vlogmas, and that is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. Now, this was the first book I've read from this author. It will not be the last. This book was absolutely incredible. Incredible. I'd heard about it from so many different people. Was so excited to finally get my hands on a copy, and it was so good. So this is the story of two siblings, Robert and Gloria. After a very small altercation, Robert, who is, I believe, 12 years old, is sent to a place called the Reformatory for 6 months. And this place is brutal. It's brutal. It's hard to get into this book without getting into it, so I won't say too much until we get to the book talk. But this book deals with racism and justice. It's also a literal haunting story, and the layers to this book are just they're bone chilling. They're bone chilling. So it's about Robert and then his sister, who's on the outside. She's a little older, and she is rallying up everyone and everything that she can think of to try to get her brother out of there as quickly as possible before it's too late, basically. And it's outstanding. Outstanding. If you haven't read that one, you must add it to your TBR. It's incredible. Also, let's see. Oh my goodness. Next, I got my little notebook here with my notes in there. And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. This was by far and away one of my favorite books of the year. She's a Canadian author, and I had never read from her before. There's a lot of authors in here that this year was my first time reading them, and I found new favorite authors. Alicia is one of them. This book is an absolute I don't even know how to word it. It's an absolute ride. It's wild. It's the story of a woman. She's an Indigenous woman in Canada, and she's married a white man, and they live in the suburbs of Toronto, I think. Again, the layers to this book are, it's about motherhood. It's about grief. It's about how things aren't what they seem. Again, all of these books, aside from The Reformatory, I've got videos on, so you can go if you want more in-depth looks into them. But this one, it starts off as one thing. It starts off as just a typical story told in a typical way. Not a typical story, but a story told in a typical way. And then as it goes on, it kind of evolves into something so much more. Something so much more. And it's incredible. So yeah, add that one to your TBR too. It's out of this world. The next one, I'm not going to say too much about because I've cried about it too many times already on this channel, and you don't want that. I don't want that. So we're just going to briefly mention it. And this is On the Savage Side by Tiffany McDaniel. This is the story of two sisters who are living in Ohio, and young girls around them are going missing. And this story will, this book will never leave me. It will never, ever leave me. And it introduced me to Tiffany McDaniel. I've also read Betty. I've got The Summer That Melted Everything on my TBR. She's an incredible author. Incredible. The way that she knows how to tell a story in such a way that will devastate you is almost unparalleled, in my opinion. Okay, next up, a little lighter. We've got The Drift by C.J. Tudor. This is a really fun, really good thriller. So it's kind of, first place, it takes place in the winter, which I love. I love when books take place in the winter. So we've got 3 timelines going on here. We don't know when they are. You know, you think they're all happening at the same time because there's been a pandemic. And they're moving people from like the cities to this place that's called, I can't remember what they call it, but it's sort of like a safe zone. So they're moving people in 3 different ways. It's like a train, cable cars, and then you get the point of view from the people who are already at the safe zone. And it's so stressful, but it's so good. And C.J. Tudor, she's always a hit for me, and this was definitely no exception. Next up, One of the Good Guys by Araminta Hall. This was a recent read for me, and it takes a look at what if a man that considers himself to be a really good, decent, empathetic man, like he truly believes it. But what if he isn't? What then? And I just thought it was a really topical, really interesting read. And yeah, it kept me turning those pages real quick. The next one, number 6 here, we have The September House by Carissa Orlando. I loved this. I know some people are, I mean, as with any book, people are divided, but you're either going to love it or hate it. But I really loved it because you know I love a good haunted house story. It's my favorite type of horror. And this is the story of a man and a woman. I can't remember their names. I'm so bad for like, after I've read a book and it's been a while, the details get fuzzy. Unless you're Tiffany McDaniel, the details don't get fuzzy. But the details get fuzzy. But it's about a man and a woman. They move into their dream house. And shortly after they move in, September rolls around and all hell breaks loose in this house. The walls are bleeding. There's ghosts everywhere. And, you know, she's like, I'm not leaving. This is my dream house. We'll just deal with it. Then eventually her husband ends up going missing. And their grown daughter's calling. And she's like, why can't I get a hold of Dad? I'm coming. And then the mom's like, oh my God, like, it's September. She can't come here. But she knows there's no way to get her not to. So it just goes from there. I thought it was really well written. I can't wait to see what this author writes next. And it was spooky. It was also funny. Like, it's really funny. Even though, you know, it doesn't sound like it would be. It is. I laughed. Next up, we have A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. Now, this is my first book by her that I've read, although I know she's got others. And I've had, since I posted the video on this one, I've had people recommend other ones. So I look forward to reading more. This book takes place in Hill House from The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. So this is the first story to like have permission to write about that house again. And this one involves a group of creatives who are going there to work on, I think, a play. And then, you know, they're haunted because it's a very, very haunted house. And I enjoyed it. It was a 5-star for me. These are all 5-star reads for me. And yeah, I think it was great. Next up, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Now, I know Riley Sager is a divisive man. People love him or they hate him. But I loved this one. In fact, I've loved most of the books that I've read from him because to me, he's the kind of author that takes a story and it's plugging along and it's chugging along, and then all of a sudden he's like, yeah? And then he throws the craziest shit he can think of into it. He goes completely off the rails. Because I've read House Across the Lake. That one goes wild. But it was wild enough that, like, I loved it. I could just go with it, you know? The Only One Left, it was great. It's about this house that, I don't even know how to describe this one. So, it's about a house in a town that is occupied by a woman who's accused of having killed her entire family way back when she was a kid. And our main character, she gets a job as a caretaker there because she's had some darkness in her past, and she gets assigned this job because nobody wants it. And so once she goes there, the woman says that she wants to tell her story to our main character, and so she does. And yeah, it's crazy. The twists, they keep on twisting, as with Riley Sager all the time. Yeah. Next up we have, Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. Catriona Ward is quickly become a major fave of mine. I think she's a really interesting storyteller. Now, I'm trying to think. I've loved all the books I've read from her so far. This is my third one. I've read The Last House on Needless Street. I read Little Eve, which I loved, and now this one. And yeah, it's about a group of friends. So it's kind of about storytelling, this book. And there's stories within stories. It's this group of friends, and they meet on a little seaside village, and it's about their lives together. They spend a summer together, and then we're hearing the stories of what happened. It's like this author has written this book about his time as a young boy with these people in this place. And then it gets, I don't know, I've heard a lot of people didn't like it, but I loved it. And then, yeah, it's kind of a story about writing a story type of thing. And I thought it was very interesting. Do I suddenly feel like sound like I'm getting sick to you? Because over the past couple of minutes, I feel like I'm getting sick. That better not be happening. Next one, number 10, Let Him In by William Friend. I went back and forth between this one and Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent on which to put in this final position, because I love them both, but I'm going with Let Him In by William Friend. This is the story of grief. It's a haunted house. There's kids. Kids are always extra creepy. I thought this was very well written, had some poignant messages. I love when grief and horror meet. That's my favorite. I love stories about grief in general, and so when it's like in a haunted setting, it's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. And there were some very poignant messages, I think, in this story. I loved it a lot. And then the number 11 that I kind of want to toss in here because I read it this year. I've read it twice this year. It sent me off on a whole expedition of reading all this author's other books. And that, of course, is Bunny by Mona Awad. I won't talk about it too much here because I've talked about it so much on this channel already, but it's a wild ride. It's a wild ride, and if you like weird, I think you'd love it. It's about this woman, I think her name's Samantha, and she's in college, and she meets this group of girls called the Bunnies, or who call themselves Bunny. They all call each other Bunny, and that gets chaotic. This whole book's like a fever dream, but I loved it. I loved it. And it has such rereadability because once you get to the end and you find out what's going on, when you reread it, you see all these things that you missed in the first reading. And I have a feeling that when I read it for the third time, I might even discover more. So yeah, those are my favorite books of 2023. I feel like I had a great reading year this year. And those are just the 5 stars. I had a lot of 4 stars as well. 3 stars. I consider anything 3 and above a great book. But these were the ones that really got me this year. And I can't wait to see what comes next in 2024 from all these authors, and then discovering new authors. I think that's so fun, and I love it so much. So that's gonna do it for me for today. Let me know in the comments down below, and I know this is a tough question, I know it is, but what's the best book you've read this year? Your number 1 favorite? Let me know. And maybe I'll add it to my list for next year. And it doesn't have to be from 2023. It can be from any year. But yeah, let me know your favorite. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.